The best thing you can ever do for yourself is a toxic upward spiral glow up journey. It's like a checklist of how can I be more perfect than I already am? And once you start, you don't want to stop. So you're welcome in advance.
So we've talked a lot on my channel lately about consumer culture and how to be a smarter consumer, right? Today I want to talk about it from the standpoint of a very toxic and possibly dangerous phenomenon that I have seen rise so precipitously lately online, and that is approval addiction and toxic glow up culture.
This is me when I used to be ugly. This is me after my first glow up, and this is me now.
These are 5 things that I did to go from hyper masculine to stepping into my feminine.
Firstly, I get supernatural lash extensions because if you get them too full,
you just look stupid.
I'm ignoring personal style. The end result.
Let me show you how to go from ugly
to pretty.
As I've been consuming this content, I have been so actually concerned, like as a parent, and I know that there's that whole like generational hysteria that everybody accuses everybody else of. It's like, oh, they always hate the next generation, but it's like, I do want to actually offer a little bit of like my own personal insight on how these phenomena affected me when I was in my teens and 20s, and maybe it might like help to put this kind of like counter messaging online, part of the conversation. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump in. I'm gonna start with approval addiction. This is not a new thing, right? We, at least my generation, we really loved like hotornot.com. We had our top 8 on MySpace, which was like the ultimate hierarchy, the ultimate like public shame or public recognition to be put or removed from someone's top 8 on MySpace. And we also had LiveJournal, and LiveJournal had rating communities, and it would be these very edited scene photos of us, you know, where we had these angles and we tried to make it look perfectly proportionate. It didn't matter if we had like blasted the contrast out so much that you literally couldn't see our nose anymore. That didn't matter. We were rating kind of the person's appearance online. It was almost like a persona, right? And honestly, no one called each other ugly. That was what was so strange about it, was that like maybe hotornot.com being as anonymous as it was, I don't really know like what the general consensus was there, but on these LiveJournal rating communities, people pretty much only chimed in if they thought you were hot. And I felt like it was almost like a community of people like disguised as a critical democracy kind of thing. And what it was a bunch of like scene kids trying to like stick together and find their people. And so these things aren't always negative, and there is such a weird blurry line. This started for me because someone left in my comments on one of my previous videos about the TikTok, you know, beautification culture and everything like that, and kind of these impossible standards. Someone said that the subreddit makeup addiction has become a lot of these like, this is my makeup, tell me what I need, and that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the internet has this power to always take everything to the nth degree, always use it, co-opt it for whatever the purposes they're trying to achieve are, and then ultimately monetize it. So it becomes something very toxic, and it becomes something that is consumed by the users of the internet who are not so much accustomed to recognizing such things, aka children. And when I say children, I don't really know. I guess I should say like the youths or something, but I think there is a difference between like the late teens, early 20s. A lot of those people are the ones making the commentary videos, and then like this younger set that is already trying to adhere to beauty standards, which I guess we were at that age, but like not really. It was more of a microcosm of like who at school was cool, and we were trying to assimilate, and then when we didn't fit in, we had to figure out some other way, and it wasn't ideal, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't pretty, and I was bullied, but like it wasn't going online and being bullied by the internet or by AI, which is also what's happening. So I think that the next iteration of that phenomenon has been these sort of like make me pretty, be brutally honest TikToks. A lot of these girls who you can see are, you know, I mean, visibly not fully developed because they're kind of going through puberty. They have like, you know, acne and things on their faces, and they are young. They're just visibly young. And so they are like, please make me prettier. And there are these anonymous accounts that have Photoshop essentially, and they will go in and claim to be helping you out, girl. I got you, girl. And then they'll Photoshop their faces and tell them what they need to do to be pretty. I made a TikTok / you know, Instagram reel about this.
everything I did to make me pretty. Let me show you how to go from ugly to pretty.
Log off. Get off of this stupid app that's telling you that you're ugly. Oh my God. And I think that the word pretty and the word ugly have come to mean something so triggering for these kids at this point. They use ugly a lot, and like people are calling themselves ugly and saying that they went from ugly to pretty, and I just can't help but be like a little bit of a pearl clutcher as like a millennial. Like, we never called anyone ugly. Like that's a terrible thing to say about someone. I don't know if anyone, even like my worst bully, ever called me ugly. And it's not because I wasn't ugly and that these kids online now are, okay? No one should be calling anyone ugly. You're not ugly. Everybody is beautiful. And the thing is, I think that like what's happening is no one is getting online and talking about individuality, because that's not what trends. What trends is the idea of being natural, but like it has to be a trend. It is not about embracing your natural beauty. It's about embracing someone else's idea of like what a clean face of makeup looks like.
You wanna know how East African women are so beautiful? It's because their ancestors taught them these 3 ancient beauty secrets.
Eastern European girls are obsessed with this beauty treatment. It will make you more naturally beautiful, and today we're doing brow lamination and eyelashes lift.
And that's still not a path that's going to lead anywhere good, because essentially they are still weaponizing those beauty standards and conformity to make people feel less than and then sell them things or get them addicted to a certain creator or a certain platform. The next iteration is particularly disgusting though, and I discovered this over the weekend and I sort of went into a few rabbit holes to try and find it, but like there are now these algorithms that are built into apps that are made by adult human beings who have stakeholders and have boardrooms full of people making decisions on what their next functionality of their app should be. And they're making the decision to integrate AI that criticizes its users, okay? There is a part of the Facetune app. Yes, I use Facetune. It has a lot of really great tools in it. I'm not sure if it's in the paid version or in all versions, but essentially you upload a full body photo of yourself for who? For who? Like, what is the ulterior motive here? I'm sure that there's some reason that this app wants us to upload a full body photo of ourselves. Like there's got to be some kind of really beautiful big data, like golden egg that they've like assigned some kind of monetary value to, and they're tricking people into using this functionality. But what it is it's like criticism bait, kind of. It's like hate bait, like self-hate bait. I'm just making that up. And you're supposed to upload a full body picture of yourself and then AI just rips you to shreds. Like insults your outfit, teaches maybe teenagers how to bully one another, which is just so productive because we really needed help with that. And there are, when you search for it, all sorts of ChatGPT bots that will do this for you as well. So to me, what's broken here in this entire approval addiction phenomenon is the fact that kids, or maybe all of us, I don't know, are going to the internet to be told what is the new way to be, what is the new way to look, because to be natural or to appreciate your individuality is not trendable, it is the lack of a trend. And so there's no way to make content about that. You can't make content about loving who you are. Maybe you can, but it's certainly not going to go as viral, and it gets lost in an ocean of possibly very toxic or unresearched self-help content, which I did, again, deep dive on TikTok, where there would be like little nuggets of wisdom interspersed with like these obsessive morning routines and things like that, where I was just like, it's really hard to like pull the pearl of wisdom out of this if you are kind of uninitiated to this kind of content. And I feel like there's not really like a hashtag to be able to find positivity content on the whole, the way that there is a hashtag to find make me pretty or glow up content. So I said I wasn't going to just complain. I basically have 3 tenets that I remind myself in hindsight of like when I was that age, like what I would tell me then. The first one is that the bullies aren't happy, okay? Your bullies are not happy. People who are unkind to other people are not happy people. So what they think of you, yes, they're usually shoving it down your throat and you can't escape it if you're in school, but you can log off the internet and stop letting like anonymous people and also, again, bots bully you, especially about your appearance and how you are lacking in some other way. But that's not to say that if you were popular in school, you didn't grow up to be a lovely human being. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there like that. I'm not one of those people who's like, well, you peaked in high school and now I'm better than you. I'm still friends with a lot of people who like were popular at my high school. It's fine. But specifically the people who are telling you that you are ugly, that is not a happy person, and you shouldn't listen to someone whose results you don't want, okay? They are still on their journey. They just happened to make a video right in the cross section of their own journey, and it looks like they're finished, like they're at the end of their journey. We're never at the end of our journey. It looks like they have like completed some kind of cycle, and it's like, I went from ugly to pretty, I went from imperfect to perfect, this is my solution, here's my content, it's 90 seconds on TikTok, which can't solve anybody's problems. It is all just an imperfect human on their own journey trying to offer you advice because they had some kind of like aha moment, or they have realized that that's the kind of content that's going to do well and they're just trying to make a career on the internet. And in order to do so, they might feel conflicted about it, or they might be too young to understand the repercussions of it, but at the end of the day, they're willing to set aside those morals to create sort of an addictive cycle for viewers based on making them feel inadequate. And that's what's happening to you. The second thing is, pretty is subjective. Pretty is a word that, like, you know, I would love to be able to use it in all of the best contexts, right? I don't think that pretty in and of itself is a bad thing, but I think that the way it's being used, especially in short form, especially within this context, is to be perceived almost by the male gaze or by your peers, like your competitors essentially, as the ideal of pretty. Not like pretty because you're pretty, or pretty because you're confident, or pretty because you like yourself and you think you're pretty. We're only using that descriptor to mean the opposite of ugly. And that is basically to build an insecurity into you so that you feel like you need to solve the insecurity, ugly versus pretty. It is just a binary. That's how it's being used. And so anytime you are using pretty as your North Star, you are, and I'm kind of like speaking to the kids here. I know it's not that many kids watching my channel, but maybe, you know, maybe you can tell this to your kids. I don't know. Hopefully it gets around to them somehow. But if you're using pretty as your North Star, that is an unachievable goal because it's focusing on someone else's approval of you. It's someone else's opinion of you. You're never going to fill the personal satisfaction and true confidence hole in your heart, which is like what I think the entire internet ignores. You're never going to supplant that with someone else's opinion. I got divorced last year, okay? My divorce was final at the beginning of this year, and anybody who's been divorced, you know, it takes away your sense of self. It just completely rips your comfort zone out from under you. It doesn't matter how much you know it's something that needed to happen, you lose your self-worth. You just do for a period of time. And so this is actually pretty fresh in my mind right now, how I had to go about finding myself again, finding the path back to myself, instead of looking to outward sources for the dopamine of approval, because that is what these kids are doing essentially. And honestly, like I said, I'm 37 and it's a cycle. We can always kind of find ourselves in those places, and it's really important to have the tools to be able to bring ourselves back to center. My third tenet is that confidence happens solo. Okay? Confidence is not something that can be, again, built by anyone else, but the act of building confidence actually happens when you have the guts to sit with yourself. Go do things by yourself. Go to a movie by yourself. Go to a music show by yourself. Go get a table for one at a restaurant and start to notice what that does for you. You realize that independence is a little bit scary, but when you overcome something scary, boom, you have built confidence. And it's those kinds of things that start to build on themselves. And it's not a life hack. It's not something where it's like, I was able to get this quick dopamine hit and that makes me want to seek more dopamine hits. It's actually about sort of reinforcing this very concrete center of self where you're like, no, I know myself well enough that like worst case scenario, I'm on my own, and that's okay with me because I really like my own company. Especially as like a non-only child, a younger sister, I tended to always make close friends with only children because I loved how decisive they were. I loved how they always knew what they wanted. My child is an only child. I love that he knows what he wants. And it's that kind of innate confidence that I tried to emulate because I was like, where does that come from? That comes from asking yourself what you want to begin with. And doing things solo, the first step of that is saying, well, what do I want to do today? And when you're asking yourself what you want, it's not selfish. You're literally building a sense of self where you hear your own voice louder than others inside your head, and you start to make decisions based on how you feel in every aspect of your life, which is always going to lead you towards happiness. If that sounds terrifying to you, I promise you it's not. It's actually like a very fast way to get on the road to self-actualization. And I feel like it's very practical advice that would work for anyone. I don't think that it's any kind of like, subscribe to my woo-woo mailing list, or like, you know, sign up for my course. Go do things by yourself and just see how it makes you feel. All right, let's talk about toxic glow up culture. I feel like the conversation has been centered around plastic surgery and fillers and stuff lately, and the whole like Gen Z is aging like milk thing and whatever. This conversation can very quickly go towards like the morality of getting work done, and I don't really want to go there. Like, I've had work done, I have my lips done, I have Botox, I basically have a mid-sized sedan in my teeth. Like, every single one of my teeth is crowned. I have videos on that on my front page. I have no regrets. But based on what I was just talking about in terms of building that actual inner concrete confidence, you know whether you're making a change to your appearance based on what you want or something else. And we all make mistakes. And when I say mistakes, I mean, you know, I went and got my glabella redone before I got my forehead redone, and my eyebrows shot up because Botox is weird, and I still can't really reconcile why I prefer it versus my forehead wrinkling. Like, you don't have to know yourself perfectly in order to love the person that you are that changes a little bit every single day. So you're allowed to try things. You're allowed to not like things. You're allowed to look back and say like, yeah, that wasn't for me, but I'm glad I tried it, kind of thing. And we learn through those things. And so it is this kind of perfectionism that I think leads people to believing that like they should value someone else's opinion of them more than they value their own opinion of themselves. Like, oh, this is what I'm being told looks good, and so I'm gonna do it. And so like, even if I don't like it, I look like this other person and people think they look good. Like, that's a terrifying way to measure yourself. So I'm gonna show y'all a TikTok that is the reason that I even started thinking about this as the name that I'm calling it, which is toxic glow up culture.
Listen to me, and listen to me very carefully, because I'm about to change your entire life, okay? The best thing you can ever do for yourself is a toxic upward spiral glow up journey. Now let me explain, okay? I got my teeth done. I got my brows nanobladed. Look, perfection, okay? And now that I've started this path, I've started the ball to roll. So now I'm like, okay, I'm going to the gym. What else can I do? It's like a checklist of how can I be more perfect than I already am? The confidence that starts coming out of you when you start this little path, unbelievable. I genuinely think that I'm the main character of everyone's storyline. Everything in this world is drafted for me. I'm positive, I'm smiling, I'm happy, I am flirtatious, outrageous, all of the good things. And once you start, you don't want to stop. So you're welcome in advance.
So this is obviously an extreme example. I would like to think that she's exaggerating the tone of the video for dramatic effect, but the fact is she is encouraging something that is entirely based on perfectionism, and people are stitching it, which means that they're kind of piggybacking on it. They'll play part of her video and then they'll comment on it, and it's a lot of times not critical. They're like, yep, this worked for me, and it's like, oh no, did it? I don't think so. You know, like, there is something to be said for making changes to your appearance that are going to bring you confidence, but your confidence in your appearance is not the only thing that constitutes your confidence. You want to also have confidence in your decision making. You want to have confidence in your intelligence, or just to pursue your own happiness. Confidence in the pursuit of your own happiness is enormous, and that can be the reason that you make a decision to change your face for one reason or another. So what is the advice and the counter messaging that I think is the most important here? There are two roads diverged in a wood. One is leading you towards someone else's approval, and it doesn't ever get there. The other one leads towards understanding and appreciating your own individuality, which is something that will pay dividends for the rest of your life. When you start recognizing that being different and the things that make you different are the things that make you worthy, the whole world opens up to you. You have the confidence to do anything that you want. This came as a crashing reality on me. I went through like a hypnotherapy session one time with a very trusted therapist, and what I came out of it with was this idea that, like, you know, because I had just had my child, I was like, the way that I love him, and he never has to do anything to earn that love. Like, I just innately see him as like worthy and full of potential, and that's never going to change. That like, I, as a human being, am worthy of that same kind of self-love. Because it's like, I would never want him to doubt his worthiness to exist. It's like, I should feel that same way about myself. And that kind of self-love is something that I feel like a lot of us are always kind of chasing in the form of the next iteration of ourselves, or sometimes a previous version of ourselves, and kind of trying to get back to that. I said this years and years ago, but I haven't talked about this kind of thing on my channel in a while, but this is sort of a mind you know what if you think about it too hard. If you're always loving a future version of yourself or a past version of yourself, but you're never loving yourself in the present, you will reach the end of your life having never actually loved yourself, okay? Because you're never loving the real self, you're loving a hypothetical version of yourself that doesn't actually exist. And it's usually based off some other like external opinion of what you should be. I don't know if y'all know this, but I have the word should blocked in my comments. I don't like being told what I should do. And so, I mean, since probably like 6 months into my channel, because you can block words, I blocked the word should. I don't want to know what people think I should do. So practical advice here, especially for the youths, but honestly, like, again, I just went through a cycle like this of my own. 1, log off. Just go touch grass. I know that that's such a, like, an insult almost to the youths, because it's like, oh, you're so stuck in your screens. Go log off and touch grass. I mean it. Go breathe fresh air just for like a minute. Do something that doesn't involve an algorithm or a screen, and you will experience or re-experience, if you're my age, the fact that the internet is just a thing. Yes, many of us were born into it. I was not. Came around when I was 9 years old. I got America Online. And that you actually don't have to exist on the internet. And you can exist on the internet on your own terms as well. It's something that's been normalized through its ubiquitousness, but that doesn't mean that it's reality. It actually is so surreal because it is only an amalgamation of things that have been created. Think about that. It's made of things that have been chosen to exist, not things that have abstained from existing. Whoa, I know, way existential. The whole idea being, you aren't going to find someone telling you to get off of the internet on the internet most of the time. That's not what algorithms are built on. They're built on keeping you glued. And so if you want to cleanse your mind, it is not about finding a TikTok on cleansing your mind. It is about getting off of the thing that is making your mind so cluttered. So we can't just completely go live in the woods, right? To one degree or another, the phone has become something that's like our auxiliary brain. So my second tip here is to change your algorithm. It takes no time at all to change your algorithm. If you are kind of weirdly icky feeling addicted to certain creators or certain hashtags or whatever in the content that you're consuming, clear your history and unfollow those people, because that's going to tell the algorithm that you're like not interested in that anymore, and you can go and find very benign things. Just absolute brain rot if you want, you know, just so that the internet experience that you're having is true dissociation, which I think that that's kind of the best we can ask for from our phones. It's like, it's not going to give you anything fulfilling in your life other than like talking to your family or your friends, like the phone and the text aspect of it, like actually connecting with people. But like the internet, the anonymity of the internet is never going to give you anything that's going to like make you feel better. And so the best thing that I've found to do is just like make myself laugh. So when I get on my phone, it is literally just posts and memes and funny animals and just silly things, because I don't want to feel like I have this misery cube in my hand. The horrors persist, okay? And I think that to a large degree, people have gotten in this headspace where they think that like their phone deserves to decide how they feel. And they've given a lot of authority to the phone and to the people inside their phone to tell them how they feel. And we gotta get out of that, y'all. We have to get back to a place where we're seeking refuge in the inside of our own heads instead of in the opinions of other people on the internet that we don't know. We're giving way too much of our agency away to anonymous individuals on the internet. So the third thing, the third tip here, I promise we're gonna get to a really juicy one last. Journaling. I won't spend too much time here, but like journaling has been so huge for me as someone who it really helps to put things into words, especially if I'm going to go and communicate them to someone else later. It helps me when I am very agitated and I feel kind of like my nervous system freaking out about something. I'm like, oh, this is something I need to go and like talk about to myself. I've been through enough therapy. I kind of know, I'm not self-therapizing, but I know a lot of the things that someone's going to tell me because I really only have a small bouquet of issues. And one of them, the biggest one probably, is perfectionism and how just toxic that is for me. But journaling these things out instead of going and kind of like screaming at the person who you think that you're mad at, a lot of times you'll realize like, oh, I can shorten the loop of agitation and understand my own cycles, and sometimes even like make them a little bit more linear and make my life easier by writing them down and having a really honest conversation with myself. And that's what journaling does for me. Journaling is not just like, hi, today I had a latte. Like, sure, you can write that, whatever. But my journaling is very much like, why do I feel my nervous system become activated by this thing that I wouldn't have thought would bother me? And then I source it back to other times that I have felt that way. And then I source it back to possibly one of the biggest or first times that I felt that way. And then I unpack that experience and I go, oh, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy basically. And I say like, why do I have that defense mechanism? Is it useful to me anymore? Yes, no, usually no. And like, how can I begin to work myself out of these kinds of things? Like for me, my most recent one was just like taking things personally. And it's like, why do I choose to take things personally? It's because I probably had like a lack of feedback growing up. And so it's like, you're always sort of wondering whether someone like secretly hates you. Me and my friend Rebecca were talking about this and she was like, yeah, like our parents didn't approve of us very much. They didn't address much unless we were achieving. Now, of course, we need like tons of affirmation and approval to think that we have self-worth, because like we never really got told like, hey, you're worthy just for existing kind of thing. And so that can extend very quickly to trying to get as much evidence as possible at all times of how someone feels about you. And so you kind of remove your interior filter of like, what is really something that I should let get to my heart and what shouldn't, sort of thing. And you realize that like most things are not personal. Most things have nothing to do with you. And like, once you stop letting that hurt your feelings, me, then you can move past it and actually use it as something that's like liberation from that kind of loop again. And these are things that are so ongoing and so incredible when you finally embrace them that you realize like doing the work is actually what brings you comfort, because you have those muscles hot for any time that like, again, you sort of like feel activated, versus running from it, which is a lot of what we do with these, like, again, the dopamine addiction of being on our phones all the time, and sometimes the dopamine addiction of like seeking approval from an external source. So the last thing, and I think that this is as valuable or even more valuable than the exercise of doing things by yourself, a journaling tactic, and I might get emotional when I talk about this, but it sounds really simple, it almost sounds stupid. You start by saying, I can be blank and still be lovable. And you just fill in the blank and you keep digging in your heart and in your brain, line after line, I can be blank and still be lovable. And you start to really dig into your most specific insecurities. And when you put them in a sentence like that, you know, you say like, I can be selfish and still be lovable. I can be fallible and still be lovable. I can be annoying and still be lovable. I can do the wrong thing and still be lovable. And you kind of like keep digging down into all of the things that like you see as a case that's been built against your right to have self-worth. And you start unpacking it and realizing like all of the people in your life who would ever exhibit those kinds of imperfections, you love them not just in spite of them, but also for them and for being a real whole human being. And that you being a real whole human being makes you more lovable. Your fallibility can make you more lovable. Your nuances, the contours of your character, those are the things that actually make you more valuable and more lovable. I saw a therapist right after my divorce and she was like, learn to embrace your mistakes, embrace making mistakes. I was like, huh? You know what I mean? And it's like slowly, especially through that process, which by the way, has the power to bring you to tears. And it did many a time for me, just sitting there breaking down and being like, oh, I can exhibit my worst traits by my own perception, you know, my biggest insecurities, and still be lovable. It's a very emotional thing to approach, but it's also a really positive exercise to be like, oh, these are all me. I don't just show the world the best version of me, the perfect version of me, and like that's how I seek approval. It's that all of this stuff is me, and that's how I seek my own approval, is for loving myself as a whole human being, because that is a huge reservoir in you that is self-love that honestly doesn't even take the currency of someone else's approval. Like, you cannot fill it with that. And it's never gonna get you there. Again, two roads to virginal wood, they are not the same thing. And so I had to face down my own crap, and honestly, everything kept leading me back to the same thing, and that was honest to God self-love. You gotta figure out how to find honest to God self-love, because when you have that confidence in your ability to like yourself and make decisions based on the person that you know that you are, suddenly you don't need the internet telling you who you are anymore. And then you start to become the people that you've always looked up to, right? The people who are individuals, the people who have been disruptors, because you're not going to go be a disruptor like them. Now you're gonna go be a disruptor like you. And you realize you've gone from being a follower to a leader, and that everybody who you've ever seen as a leader possesses those same qualities of really truly knowing and loving themselves. And it gives you a perfect radar for arrogance and fake confidence. And you start to really recognize that people who behave in certain ways do not have a right to your thoughts. They do not have a right to your attention, and you will naturally gravitate away from people who make you feel bad on the internet or in real life. So I really feel like I had to get that out of my system. Like, every once in a while I just have to be like, you know, because everyone in my generation has already survived this, for better or for worse. And so we feel like we should have been able to solve it for the next generation. In a lot of ways, it's like, we did it. We got into body acceptance, and like, we do understand our individuality, and yay, you know. And then it's just like the next generation just finds a new spot that alienates us so that we don't have as much influence. And then they're gonna be like, well, time to hate yourself again. Did you know that your eyebrows face the wrong way? You know what I mean? Or your like nose doesn't agree with your mouth, and then it's just like new ways to bully yourself. So we have to keep these kinds of conversations going. And I will continue to respond to this kind of content in short form as well as I can, because the impulses are not going away, and I do think that the counter messaging is really important. I don't think I'm perfect, and that's the point, you know, is that like I'm counter messaging that with the messaging of imperfection. Like, let's go be ourselves. Let's make mistakes. Let's embrace them. Let's get to know each other as individuals and not have this online homogeneity be our North Star. So those are my thoughts. I could talk about it all day. This is probably a very long video, but if you liked this, please give the video a thumbs up. I promise we're gonna get back into makeup soon. I just had to get this out. You know, I think that this is part of beauty, okay? It's just not a beauty review. If you like to give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, I usually talk about color theory and I do makeup reviews, but lately the zeitgeist has just been crawling under my skin and I've just been having to shout into the void. So if you like this kind of thing, subscribe while you're here. I will put a video up here that I think you'll enjoy. If you liked this one, I love y'all so freaking much. Thank you for being here. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!